Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for joining us for another edition of the podcast, Escaping Rock Bottom. I'm your host, Brandon Lee. I'm telling you, folks, we've been doing this since January, 20 episodes in. We have yet to do a story like this. I promise you, you've never heard a story like this. I'm really proud of this guy who I'm going to introduce to you in just a minute, Garrett. He's got an insane story to tell, and what I want you to take away from this is a story of inspiration and a story of hope that no matter how far down the scale you have fallen, you too can get back up on your feet and create a beautiful life for yourself after you listen to this guy. Garrett, so good to see you.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for reaching out to me.
Yeah.
Your story is something I had never heard of before. So we're going to start back at your childhood, all right? What was it like? Where did you grow up? And when did you start to dabble in gangs and drugs and booze?
So my parents were like military. My dad was in the Marines. My mom was in the Marines. They had a Marine Corps wedding. Like literally like Marines. I grew up on bases till I was about 7. My dad retired after 22 years. My mom retired, I think, after 5. So again, super military. They retired in Houston, Texas. And I guess if you want to start with my drugs and alcohol, start how that started, because it was way before gangs. My sister, who's way older than me, I have an older brother and then a much older sister. And my sister, I know when my parents, I don't know, I was probably about 8 or so. My sister would throw my parents would go out of town, and my sister would throw these super huge kegger parties. This is back in the 80s, and everybody would be there. And at the point about 8 or so, my sister and her friends thought, hey, let's get the little kid drunk. Let's see what he'll do. And yeah, man, from that point on, I was instantly hooked, right?
What was that feeling like for you when you took that first sip of alcohol?
I can't say that I exactly remember exactly what it felt, but I know that it had to have been like, everybody loves me now. Like, I'm the cool kid, right? I'm 8 years old. All my little friends in the neighborhood, I can tell them I was partying with these older kids. And it wasn't just like one time. It was a continuous thing. Like, after that, it was like always. I remember times my dad owned a pizza restaurant, and we would run up to his pizza restaurant and steal all the alcohol and then go back and drink it all. And then we're talking 9, 10-year-old kids, 11-year-olds, whatever it was. It was the same scenario with drugs. Her and her friends, more so her friends, doing drugs, and then like, hey, let's get the little kid drunk, let's get the little kid high, see what he'll do. And of course, it's like you're a 10-year-old kid and you're doing cocaine or smoking weed, and it's like you're into the world, man. It's the greatest thing in the world. It's the best feeling you could ever have.
I started using cocaine at the age of 15, growing up on the beach and the beaches of California. And so I remember for me that the moment I tried cocaine at age 15, I felt that numbness and I felt that feel good, and I kept chasing that feel good. I kept chasing that numbness and that escape, because it felt good to escape, even as a kid at 15. So at what point did you get affiliated with gangs? And kind of talk me through it, because it does involve some white supremacy stuff.
Yeah, a lot younger. 14, 15 was when it first got introduced to me. I wouldn't say that I necessarily got super deep, involved, heavy involved till I was probably about 19 or 20. But I was what's called a skinhead, and I hated everybody. I look back now, and I think it was more so that it was, okay, so gangs was either you're a part of the gang or you're a victim of a gang, right? And then that's how it was back in the 80s and 90s, right? More so the 90s. And they were cool, right? And the skinheads were scary dudes, man. So I wanted to be a scary dude, and I wanted to fit in. I think it was more so at that point in time, it's just I wanted to fit in. So, and I'm that guy that no matter what I do, I take it to the extreme, right? And so if I'm going to be in any kind of gang, I want to be the guy, right? And I want to be super heavily involved. And that's what I did, man, is I wanted to keep growing and getting bigger and bigger, as in notoriety. I wanted people to know my name and be scared of me and who I was.
Almost that sense of validation, that sense of belonging to a group.
Yeah, and through working the program and working the steps, I come to realize is that it was fear, right? I was scared of people knowing who I really was, right? Was a scared little kid, right? And I didn't want people to feel that way, so what I did is I turned it to anger, right? And so being able to be angry and being a hostile person, man, I was enraged with anger.
It's interesting you say that too, because I get this question a lot is why do you, people are like, God, you look like a character from Prison Break with all your tattoos. And, one of the things through the step work and through like peeling back all the layers to me is that I tell people all the time now, I'm like, I actually layered myself up with all the tattoos to give people a false impression of who I was. This is me. I'm not speaking for other people with all the ink, but to me, it was like truly putting on an exoskeleton, like another layer to keep people away, to give people this feeling that I'm some tough guy. Because I was dealing with gay shame. And I didn't want people to know I was gay. I wanted people to think I was some tough guy, which is the reason why I started inking up my entire body. So it's interesting that you say that it was kind of based out of fear, that you kind of ran with these groups to be tough and definitely scare people.
And definitely all my work is political, as in you would say, in that kind of gang activity. And it's like stuff we would say earned, right? It's stuff that you do to earn it. And I did it not only because to have that, but also it shows my superiority, right? It makes people scared of me.
But why were you so angry?
I don't know that I think, like I said before, I think it was more so the fact that I just didn't want people to know what was really going on inside, right? It was in some form or fashion, I was scared, right? And I didn't want you to know I was scared. So how do I turn fear? I turn it to anger, right? And instead of loving somebody, I hate them, right? And I want to hurt you. So if I can hurt you and make you scared of me, then you're not going to know that inside I'm really scared.
So how did you end up, because you got pretty high up within the gang. Right? I mean, you were kind of a high-ranking guy within
definitely
the whole gang. Tell me a little bit of, if we can go back to some of the war stories of some of the stuff you got yourself into. And there was one case in particular that you were telling me about, that you were running for the cartel and you were stealing a bunch of cars.
Yeah, so I had a buddy of mine that was very involved in that stuff, and it started just drugs, drugs here and there. And then he was asking me to get him cars. So we were getting like a slew of cars. So my first introduction, which would be crystal methamphetamines, right, which was huge for me, was because I didn't do crystal, because that was for tweakers. And
I said the same thing. 6 months on crystal meth took me down, but I used to say the same thing.
I was at a buddy's house, and it was my birthday. I think I was 19 or 20. And he was in the bathroom with his girlfriend, and he was like, hey bro, your birthday present's underneath the magazine on the coffee table. And I was like, all right, so it's gotta be money, right? Because what fits under a magazine? And I flipped it up, and it was a little white line. I thought, oh, it's some Coke. We're gonna party hard, right, for my birthday. And I did the line, and it certainly was not Coke, right?
No, right away, because that's how I was introduced.
Definitely not Coke.
I thought it was a line of Coke, and I did a line of crystal meth, and I felt that burn.
Oh, and not just the burn, but then that just instant head rush, the bells ringing, all the good stuff. And from that point on, I was a super tweaker, right? Because there wasn't nothing I wouldn't do. And so when he asked me to get cars, yeah, no problem. I'd stolen. So when I grew up, and backing up a little bit, I had taken every one of my family members' cars. My mom, my sister, my brother, they can all tell you, I stole all their cars. I even wrecked my brother's brand new Mustang because I just wanted to drive. So stealing cars was easy. Started stealing a lot of cars. I'll say this, and then I'll go back a little bit, I ended up getting arrested in 1997, and I was facing 57 counts of grand theft auto, 2 counts of theft, and then 1 with theft with intent to commit murder. And that started because we were spun out tweaking in a stolen car, a really nice luxury stolen car, and I pulled into a Circle K one night. And I was pumping gas, and I had my buddy with me, and I heard a car next to me in the stall next to me. And it just, the sound, you could hear the mufflers rumbling, and you knew this was like a super cool car. And I looked over, and it was this brand new Mustang Saline, fresh off the showroom floor, just super bad. And I thought I'm not gonna even steal this car because it's so freaking tight, right? And then as I went to go back to my car, I caught the license plate, and it said Arpaio, right? And for anybody that doesn't know who Arpaio is, look him up.
Former sheriff of Maricopa County.
So instantly, I'm stealing this car, and allegedly, right? I robbed his nephew, Joe Arpaio's nephew, at gunpoint and stole his car. That's the tweaking things I did. I would do anything that I could to get that next rush, right? And that to me, I didn't steal that car, of course, because it was our pile or whatever, but it was because of that rush, right? The rush of fear of somebody else, right? Your fear makes me it makes inside me like, now you really don't know that I'm scared or what's going on inside of me.
So you're how old now?
I'm 45.
You're 45. How many years approximately did you spend in prison?
About 20.
About 20. So about half your life you've spent behind bars.
Absolutely.
And the other half using.
Absolutely. I mean, well, up to a young age, yeah. So like definitely more time in prison and using than anything else.
And you've been sober how long now?
I'm coming up on 20 months.
What was that epiphany like? When did you decide that you needed to change your life to get sober?
So I went to prison my first time, and I did 5 years. And I was telling you earlier, it's like, so for me, going to prison was not something for me to go get rehabilitated, right? I went to prison to get educated, right? Because I wanted to learn how other people committed crimes, and I wanted to do what they did, but not get busted, right? I wanted to be the best criminal in the world.
By the way, that's really delusional thinking.
It's dumb, right? But so I got out of prison. I was out 6 months, caught another case, did like 6 years, got out, was out for 6 more months. And then I caught a big case. I was doing 9 years. And I was in prison doing a lot of drugs in prison because there's way more drugs in prison than there are out here on the streets. And that's the truth of it. I found out that I had hepatitis C, hepatitis B, and hepatitis E. And at one point they gave me 6 months left to live.
Wow.
And I remember when they told me that, I had found out that it was B and E was I was so bad that I was jaundiced. I was jaundiced. I weighed like 140 pounds. I couldn't even get out of my bed. I was just consistently shooting up. And I was literally going to die. And a black CO, right? You're talking to a skinhead guy. A black CO picks me up and carries me to medical, and he drops me down and he says, hey man, if you don't treat this guy, he's going to die. They take me to the hospital. I find out about the B and the E, and then I go back to my cell and I tell my homeboys, I'm like, hey man, when our stuff comes in this weekend, I want you to keep shooting me up until I die. Mm-hmm. Because I don't want to die in prison under their terms. I want to die under my terms. So I'm going to keep getting high. And I think at that moment, I kind of realized that it's bad, And I tell the story a lot. There was a guy, a buddy of mine, that he had come back, he had got out and he got into the program, right? And he was really working a solid program. He came back on a new case. He was doing 3.5 years. And every time I would have drugs, he would come over to my little cube and he'd be like, hey bro, you want to read the big book? And I'll be like, dude, I got all these drugs, get out of here, right? And this went on month after month. And then finally one time he came up and he was like, hey man, you want to go read the big book? And I was like, look bro, if I go read the big book with you, will you leave me alone? And he was like, yeah. And we went out and on the picnic table in prison and we read it, and I don't know, man, I think I would say that was my first spiritual experience because something grabbed me. I wanted to not be this guy anymore, but I still wanted all that notoriety. So how do I do both, if that makes sense?
It does. That's like your ego, right? The ego wanting the attention and the notoriety, right? But your soul was broken.
Completely.
Yeah.
And torn because I had a family and kids that wanted me to change. And then I had these guys that were my friends for a long time that were vicious.
You just, because of the gang that you were affiliated with, you had so much hate and so much rage. And I think what a lot of people want to know is, where did that come from? Because you're sitting here talking to me and I'm gay.
Wait, what?
I know, right? But I'm somebody who you would have targeted back in the day.
Definitely.
And would have beat up.
Definitely.
And would have hurt or wanted to hurt.
Definitely.
Where does that rage come from? Is your brothers like that? Is your sisters like that? Is your mom like that? Is your dad like that?
No, I don't. None of them are really like that, man. My mom's a great Christian lady.
Did your mom ever say to you, how the hell did this happen?
So it's funny is my mom used to call me a pighead instead of a skinhead, a pighead. Right, and she actually found out. She didn't even really know that I was so deep and involved in this until I was in federal prison. I was in a maximum federal prison, and they came to visit me. It was her, my grandmother, and my aunt, and my grandpa. And I have it tatted on my arms. And I was going to itch, and she seen it on one arm, and she was like, oh my, what is that? And then pull up the other arm, and then she just couldn't believe it. Right, that's who her son was. she had told me at one point in time, this is pretty recent, that I was the person she feared most in life.
Her own son.
Her own son. She said that there was nobody in the world that she's so scared more than me.
How did that make you feel when your mom says that to you?
And granted, I was in recovery when she said this, but it broke me, man. It was that hurts, man, to know that you hurt the people that care about you most that much. I mean, that's detrimental, man. That's a crossroad right there. I mean, she said it within return, saying that now I'm more than a son to her. That she couldn't believe how much I've changed and how amazing I am.
And I want to focus on that part now. And I want to focus on your recovery and what you're doing currently in your life today. And that what makes this story and this podcast so special and your story so special, I think, is that to know how much hate was in your heart and to meet you now and see the love that is in your heart and the goodwill that you are doing for so many other people, that you are now really helping young guys who are struggling with drugs get sober, showing them that there is a different way. And what I also find really cool about your story is that you're helping gang members maybe find a new way out and find a new way to live. And tell me what that gives you. Tell me what that is like for you now, looking at your life now and seeing where you were 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and seeing the guy 5 years ago, and seeing the guy that's sitting here on this couch with me today.
It's like amazing, man. It's unreal is what it is.
It's almost unbelievable. Tell me a little bit about what you encounter on a daily basis dealing with these guys who may still be tied up in gangs and trying to quit drugs. What's it like?
You know, until I got really honestly sober, right, is that like I was worried, right, that like there was going to be maybe repercussions, or maybe that like people weren't going to like me, or I mean, shit, you see me walking down the street and you look at my tattoos and you're like going to go the other direction, right? And
yeah, I mean, it's scary. You've got like skinhead all over your body,
and it still happens. But now it's part of my story, man. It's part of how I'm able to talk to people and tell them that like anybody can change, man. Anybody. I hear it all the time. You hear it, and you hear, everybody hears it all the time, is that like, if you're an addict, you deserve to die, or people don't change. And it's like, nah, like, look at me, man. Like, people do change. Like, I have a group of friends, man, all of them, all affiliated at some point in time in life, right? And all those guys have changed their lives. And all those guys are doing what they should, right? They're working a solid program. They're helping other people, right? They're not out there robbing, stealing, killing, and lying like that people used to do, right? And that's what it is. It's not about me. It's really not. Like, it's about that next guy that I'm able to change and show him that if I can do it, he can do it. Helping guys out of prison, man, that's so I know that all the times I got out of prison, there was nothing there for me. There was nobody there for me. Like, of course, my family and friends, but they don't know what's going on with me as an addict. They're not addicts. They're not alcoholics. They don't know what the situation is, and they'll never understand it. They're never going to understand it. You can go to all the Al-Anon in the world, you're still not going to understand what I'm about. And having somebody to be able to reach out to, right? That's what it's about. It's about, and it's not just the guys getting out of prison, but it's those young kids that want to think that gangs are cool, or those young kids that think drugs are cool, or those young kids that think going to the bar and partying every night getting drunk is cool. It might be cool, but then you end up like me, right? And then it's not so cool anymore. So, like I said, this is not about me, man. It's about like totally every day, all I want to do is help that next dude, or that next chick, or that next person to not go down the road that I went down.
You know, it's interesting when you say that. People ask me all the time, you know, I have a passion. My passion in life is news. Like, I love sharing people's stories. I love it. My purpose in life is to save other people. And I say that because I should be dead 10 times over some of the stuff I got myself into, right? And I'm sure you can relate to that. But my higher power kept me alive. And I tell people all the time, there's going to be a day when I die, and I'm going to meet my higher power, and she's going to look at me and she's going to say, what did you do with your life? I didn't save you so you can go make $1 million paycheck. I saved you so that you could save others. And I know that that's what my higher purpose is, my higher calling, you know, and I want to be able to tell my higher power, look at the good I did after you saved me.
There was a blog on my sponsor, you know, he's this awesome dude out of California. and he had this blog a while back on his, or a feed, whatever you want to call it. And it was like, do you feel you deserve the life you have, right? And honestly, I don't, right? I don't deserve it, but my higher power thinks I do, right? Coming from somebody who's been shot, stabbed, I've been beat with everything you can think of, been in more fights than I can even care to imagine. I've been in riots in prison. I've been in street, all kinds of stuff, like in shootouts with the police and stuff that just, it would blow your mind, right? But I'm still here. And like I got a little cousin who was a normie, what we call a normie, right? Because they're not an alcoholic and an addict, right? So you're a normie. And he died, right? At 18 years old, graduated high school, amazing life ahead of him. And I thought for a long time, like, why did he die and I'm still alive, right? And I turn it again, it's to my higher power, right? Has, like you would say, he obviously thinks that like, hey man, when you come up here and it's your time, like, what did you do?
Right.
And then now I have the opportunity to help people, man.
What do you feel, right? Like, what do you, I try to explain it to people who are not into recovery. When I have a sponsee or I get an email after a podcast and people are like, man, that podcast, you're saving my life when I drive to work and I listen to this podcast, like you're giving me hope. There is no better feeling. It's like a rush that I feel similar to the way that rush that I felt when I would do a drug, of this sense of like this invincible, amazing feeling when you know you're touching and saving somebody else's life. And that's almost a high in and of itself for me.
It's definitely a high. It's definitely, it's not just that. It's like when you go into a meeting and you share and somebody comes up to you afterwards and says, man, like I was going through the same thing you went through last week and like I was ready to kill myself. And suicide is a part of my life, right? I went through it pretty hardcore about 6 or 7 months ago. I was deadly trying to do it and I really almost got done with it.
And taking your own life.
Yeah, and I ended up getting saved by my sponsor, right? Spoke up on us at this CA convention and spoke to me, man. And like being able to get into the meeting and talk about that openly. This stuff like that that's not talked about, right? Suicide, drug addiction, abuse, rape, murder, all that stuff. Like it's all a part of all the rooms, right? You got judges, lawyers, doctors, but you also have hardcore criminals.
Right.
You have people that have done a lot of dirt in their life, but they're still the same person, right? We're all trying to recover from an alcoholism or a drug or whatever it is that got you there. And like, if I'm able to tell my story and that one person comes up to me and says, man, you changed my life forever. Man, I didn't change your life. My God did that. But I want you to know that it's amazing that I'm able to do that because I shouldn't be doing that, right? In my eyes, so kind of like whatever, but I'm the one that should be hurting you, right? I should be robbing your house or stealing your car or all that other nonsense that went on with my life. That's what I thought I should have been doing. And now you turn and I'm like doing this.
It is such an amazing story. And I have to ask you, like, because you are tatted up with white supremacist ink,
right?
When you're out in public, first impressions are first impressions. Do you ever feel that people look at you and they get a read on you, but it's not the man you are down deep inside?
Daily. Me and one of my closest friends.
How hard is it to deal with that? I mean, I get it. I don't have like white supremacist gangs, but I still am like inked up, and people automatically will just assume you're trouble. You're violent, you're a fighter, you're in it for trouble, like, and you got to break past that. It's just another barrier and a hurdle to get people to read past that first impression.
That's the hardest thing in the world sometimes. And I talk about it with my friends all the time. It's like
But you're not going to get them removed.
Absolutely not. I'm not getting them removed because that's part of my testimony. That's part of who I am. And I want people to know that that's what I was about, and that's not who I am, though. Right? That was my life before, and this is my life now. And like, you can look at me and all the tattoos in the world and all of whatever I got on my body, but come ask me who I really am and let me tell you about my life. Wow. And the ability that I have my own company now, right? 2.5 years out of prison, I have my own company, right? I have an amazing girlfriend. I have the greatest friends in the world that are sober too, right? I have the ability to just do and come and go whenever I want. I have a house, right? I have car. I have the things that I always wanted, but I always took from other people.
Right.
And now they're mine. And like, that's the greatest feeling in the world, right? To wake up and pray and meditate and know that life's gonna be okay, man. Like, right? Just believing in that program and this higher power and having the ability to do this.
What's it like having, talk to me a little bit about your spiritual connection to God and your higher power, and talk to me a little bit about that in your life.
Man, that comes first. I meditate. I'm like a super deep meditator. I have this ritual where I have to light an incense, and then I have to get on the floor and I have to meditate. I even have my own little temple of Buddha, right? Or it's actually a happy monk. And that to me is that's my open area. So what I do is I like to pray in the morning, and then I like to meditate. And I think that me praying is my kind of way of talking to God, and my meditation is the way of God talking back to me, right? And it doesn't always happen that way. It's not like God saying, hey, yeah, you're going to go do this today. But it's kind of like, I know it's like a peaceful way of starting my day. And when I don't do that, it's like a weird day. It's like I'm off. So my connection to my higher power is it's super legit. And my meditation is on point. And without those, I don't know, man. It's just not, it wouldn't be normal.
Yeah, I think it's such a beautiful thing that we can sit here and 30 minutes ago talking about you wanting to beat people up and wanting to steal cars and commit all these crimes, being in and out of jail. And, towards the end of it, we could be talking about God and how important God is in your life. And if that just isn't a miracle in and of itself, I don't know what is.
I say in meetings all the time, if you don't believe in a higher power or a God, then look at me. That's proof, right? Because there's no other explanation of change like that, right? Nobody, and I don't care how much willpower in your life that you have, you can't do that. You can't change like that. That just doesn't happen. Something had to influence that change, right? And that's definitely coming from a source higher than you, which we call higher power, right? I choose to call mine God. But
how does your family react to you in your life you're living today? And you have kids, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2 kids.
What's your relationship with your kids like?
So I'm not really in my son's life. That's because of another story with her, but slowly, gradually getting there. But my daughter is amazing in my life, and we talk all the time. See her whenever I want. When it comes to my family, I'm super close now. I mean, they gave me a key to their house, right? That's crazy. This is the guy that had U.S. Marshals kicking their door and then putting guns on them. And stories like that. I mean, literally, to giving me a key to the house. Shoot, me and my mom I'm a gazillion time convicted felon, and me and my mom just spent 22 days in Europe, right? Tour in Europe, Poland and Scotland and London, and that's just not normal. Right?
No, it's normal. It's just not normal in your life.
That's just not something you would think about. If you asked me 5 years ago that I'm gonna be sober, have my own house,
sitting on a couch talking about God,
I probably would beat you up.
Yeah,
no, I would have beat you up. Dude, you're speaking some crazy nonsense. So either get out of my face or get beat up.
Wow, that's insane. Well, as we begin to wrap up this podcast, what's that message? What is that message that you have for God? I will even say this. I will say a parent who's dealing with a child, right, who's in the drug world, they're not sure what to do. They are losing hope, right, that they're watching their son or their daughter committing crimes and being involved in this drug world. What's that message that you give to that mom or dad? Because there's a ton of them who listen for hope.
To not give up on them, right? My family didn't give up on me. They might have pushed me aside, but they never gave up on me. And I would say never give up on that kid, right? And reach out to somebody in one of these programs. Reach out to me. I'll give my phone number out any day of the week, man, and I'll talk to anybody. Because change is possible, right? I'm living proof of that. And there's many, many more other dudes just like me that are doing the same thing, man. And they're changing their lives by helping other people. I would say literally don't give up on them, right? Maybe love them from afar, but don't give up on them. There's too many people out there nowadays that just think, oh, my son's a drug addict, so he's dead to me. Well, that one word could kill that son. Literally. If my mom and dad would have said, I'm done with you, you're never going to be in my life again, I might have gone and shot myself up to death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or caused some crazy story that I didn't get to be able to make this with you. Man, don't give up. There is hope, man. I got this shirt on that says Hope Dealer. That's what we are, right? We're hope dealers. And that's giving people the ability to understand that there is possibility of change. Change can happen.
Yeah, that is it's an incredibly powerful message. I'm grateful that you are sober. I'm grateful that you got 2 years now. I'm grateful that you did not commit suicide and that you are sharing a message of love and hope for so many people out there because they need to hear it. I'm proud of you. I think it's really awesome what you're doing. So
Hey.
I'll give you a hug, and hopefully won't get beat up. So see, I just got hugged by a former skinhead. So change is possible. Thank you for everyone tuning in for this edition of Escaping Rock Bottom on Spotify, Google Play, and of course YouTube, and my website, escapingrockbottom.com. Special shout out to Garrett. Thank you for sharing your story. It's powerful. We're going to do another cool series with him coming up soon. We're going to collaborate and do something awesome. But again, thank you for tuning in to Escaping Rock Bottom. We'll see you back here next Wednesday.